Hey guys, tonight we are going somewhere I guarantee you have never wanted to go. Not back to the Middle Ages, not into some dusty castle, but straight into one of the darkest corners of the 20th century. A place where science did not mean progress, it meant pain. Where men in white coats were not healers, they were executioners with clipboards. We are talking about the nightmare experiments of Nazi scientists during World War II. Spoiler alert, you would not last a day. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe if you actually enjoy this strange mix of history and horror I bring you. Drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from and what time it is for you. Because somehow it is always fascinating to see who is trying to relax with stories like these at 2 in the morning. Now get comfortable, maybe dim the lights, maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let us step carefully into tonight's journey. You've heard of history classes that put you to sleep, but tonight you're not in a classroom. Tonight you're stepping into something much darker. Forget the clean, orderly textbooks, the grainy black and white photos, the comfortable distance of time. You're not safe behind glass museum cases or YouTube documentaries. You've just woken up in the middle of one of the most nightmarish chapters of human history. And no, it's not a medieval hay mattress or a plague pit. This time, you found yourself in a barbed wire world of uniforms, boots, barking dogs, and laboratories that would make even the most depraved horror writer take a step back. Welcome to Nazi Germany during World War II. Did TMU where the word science doesn't mean innovation, progress, or discovery? It means you've become a disposable body in a grotesque game of experiments disguised as research. Take a deep breath. Well, maybe do not. The air smells like coal smoke, disinfectant, and fear. The ground is frozen under your bare feet because shoes are not guaranteed here. You have been given a striped uniform that fits like it was designed by someone who hates fabric, and maybe a thin cap that does absolutely nothing against the chill biting into your skull. Around you, towers loom with armed guards staring down at you, rifles in hand. Searchlights sweep across the yard, the kind of light you might expect at a prison escape movie. Except here, you are not even trying to run. Where would you go? Beyond the fence is another fence, and beyond that, miles of hostile countryside. And behind you, a blockhouse with smoke rising from a chimney. You try not to think about too much. You have already heard the whispers, the rumors that make your stomach twist. You shuffle forward with the others, a line of hollow faces, sunken cheeks, and eyes that do not bother pretending to hope anymore. You are herded like livestock toward the building the guards casually call the infirmary. Do not let the name fool you. It is not a place of healing. The Red Cross sign painted sloppily on the wall is a cruel joke, a twisted piece of theater designed to lull the outside world into thinking medical care is happening here. Inside, there are men in white coats, doctors with degrees from respected universities, men who once swore an oath to do no harm. But here, harm is not an accident. It is the job description. These men are not treating diseases, they are creating them. They are not easing pain, they are inflicting it. And they do not see you as a patient. You are a number, a subject, a test case. The fluorescent lights hung above you. The walls are bare, sterile, but not truly clean. The smell of antiseptic only barely covers the metallic tongue of blood that seems to cling to the floor, no matter how many times it is scrubbed. On a tray nearby, surgical instruments gleam with a polished shine, but that shine is not for your benefit. It is for theirs, to make them feel like what they are doing still carries the veneer of science, to help them believe this is a laboratory instead of a chamber of cruelty. One of the doctors walks by, clipboard in hand, glasses perched neatly on his nose, a face that might look ordinary if you passed him on a street in Berlin or Munich. He might even smile, a polite curl of the lips, as if he is greeting you for a checkup at a normal clinic. Except his notes are not about curing a cough or prescribing aspirin. They are about how long it will take for your body to collapse under extreme conditions. He is not wondering whether you will get better. He is wondering how much useful data he can squeeze out of you before you die. You are ushered into a room where beds line the walls, thin mattresses with no sheets, straps hanging off the sides. The straps are not a mystery. They are for you. You notice people already lying there, their faces pale, their eyes darting nervously, some whispering prayers, others staring blankly at the ceiling, as if they have already left their bodies behind. The guards bark orders in German, but you do not need to speak the language to understand. You sit, you wait, you become part of the machine. And here is where the nightmare truly begins. Because everything you have learned about modern medicine, about hospitals being safe places, about doctors being healers, about treatments being designed to help, becomes inverted here. The experiments are designed to push the human body to breaking point, to explore the limits of suffering under the guise of military necessity. Can soldiers survive in freezing water? Can pilots endure high altitudes? Can the human body be sterilized quickly and efficiently? Every grotesque question has a human answer, and you are the answer sheet. The doctor at the head of the room clears his throat, his words calm, clinical. He explains nothing to you. Of course, you do not need to understand. You just need to comply. But if you could read the papers on his desk, you would see the language of science twisted into something unrecognizable. Phrases like hypothermia resistance, malaria inoculation, twin comparisons written in neat handwriting that hides the reality behind them. What those words really mean is cold water, fever, injections, amputations, infections, suffering. Outside the window, the world is still at war. Bombers drone overhead somewhere in the distance. Soldiers march through ruined cities. Millions fight and die in battlefields across Europe. But inside this room, another war is being waged. A war against the basic dignity of human life, fought not with guns and tanks, but with scalpels and syringes. And unlike the soldiers outside, you do not even get the illusion of fighting back. You catch sight of another figure entering the room, this one more sharply dressed. Not the white coat of a doctor, but the black uniform of an SS officer. His presence is commanding, his posture rigid, his face a mask of authority. He is not here to heal or to experiment. He is here to ensure obedience, to make sure the doctors get their data without interruptions, to make sure you do not resist, do not cry too loudly, do not break the rhythm of the experiment. His hand rests casually on the pistol at his belt, a silent reminder that the line between laboratory subject and corpse is thinner than the paper on that clipboard. You shift uncomfortably, your stomach knotting, the reality sinking in. This is not a bad dream you will wake up from. This is not a horror film with credits that will roll. This is your reality now. And the only thing you know for sure is that you will not be leaving this room the same way you came in. The humming lights, the scratch of the pen, the soft clink of metal instruments being laid out. These sounds replace the comforts of ordinary life. No alarm clocks, no radio music, no kettle boiling, just the sterile background of cruelty disguised as curiosity. And what makes it worse is the banality of it all. These men don't think they're monsters. They think they're researchers. They'll go home at the end of the day, eat dinner, kiss their families, maybe even read a bedtime story to their children. Then tomorrow, they'll come back and freeze a human being alive to measure survival times in ice water. And if you think this is as bad as it gets, if you think maybe this is just one grotesque corner of the war, brace yourself, because the so-called experiments aren't just about freezing or burning or starving. They stretch into every part of human existence, from the most intimate parts of your body to the very structure of your bones, from the diseases pumped into your veins to the poisons slipped into your meals, from the twins separated and dissected to the skeletons collected from macabre museums. There is no part of humanity, that is not poked, prodded, measured, and mutilated under the cold gaze of Nazi science. You glance around the room again, realizing the quiet truth that seeps into your bones. No one expects to walk out of here stronger. No one expects recovery. The only thing left is endurance. Endure long enough for them to write something in their notes. Endure long enough to become a line in their data. Endure long enough for your body to give them whatever answer they are looking for. Because when it finally gives out, when you finally collapse under the weight of their cruelty, it will simply move on to the next body in line. And so begins your journey through this world of nightmare experiments. A world where science is not a beacon of progress, but a weapon sharpened against the most vulnerable. Where the human body is stripped down to numbers and samples. Where morality has been surgically removed from medicine. You thought the Middle Ages were brutal. At least the peasants there did not have to face men in white coats with clipboards and scalpels calling their agony data collection. This is the 20th century at its darkest, and you are right in the middle of it. You open your eyes, and the first thing you notice is the cold. It is not a comfortable chill like stepping into an air-conditioned room. It is the kind of cold that crawls into your bones and settles there. You are lying on a wooden plank that someone had the audacity to call a bed, covered by a thin blanket that smells like it has seen more winters than you have. Around you, rows of bunks stretch in both directions, stacked 3 high, filled with bodies that are more bone than flesh. Some of them are still, some shifting restlessly, some coughing weakly in the dark. Congratulations. This is your new home, a barracks in a Nazi concentration camp. Forget the comforts, you know. There are no soft mattresses, no pillows, no private rooms, just overcrowded bunks. Straw ticking that has not been changed since it was dumped here, and a stench that makes medieval huts smell like luxury apartments. The air is a cocktail of human sweat, unwashed bodies, damp wood, and something sour you cannot quite place. You will figure it out later when you realize the latrine is overflowing again. A bell clangs somewhere outside, sharp and metallic, the kind of sound that does not just wake you up, but jolts you like an electric shock. This is not a gentle alarm clock or the cheerful chirp of a phone. This is the sound that says, "Get up now or you will regret it." Around you, the others start to stir. Nobody complains. Nobody lingers. Everyone moves with the same grim understanding. You do not want to be the one still lying down when the guards walk in. You swing your legs over the side of the bunk and immediately regret it. The floor is concrete, and it is ice cold against your bare feet. No slippers here, no socks, unless you are lucky enough to scavenge a pair. And even then, they are probably full of holes. You stand, your body stiff and aching, and look around. There is no privacy, no space to stretch, just rows of bunks crammed so tightly you can barely walk without brushing against someone else. This is not a bedroom. It is a warehouse for human beings who have been reduced to numbers. You shuffle toward the door with the others, because that is what you do here. You shuffle. There is no energy left for walking quickly, no strength for standing tall. Everyone moves like shadows, quiet, bent, automatic. Outside, the yard waits, wide and bleak, surrounded by tall fences topped with barbed wire that glints in the pale light of dawn. Towers stand at each corner, guards inside them, rifles pointed lazily down as if shooting you would be as casual as swatting a fly. You do not need to be told the rules. The rules are obvious. Stay in line. Keep your eyes down. Do not draw attention. The cold bites at your skin, sharper than before. Your uniform is nothing more than a thin striped coat and pants, hanging loose because you have already lost weight since arriving here. Everyone does. There is no such thing as holding steady. You shrink. You wither. You hollow out. The uniform is meant to dehumanize you, to strip away individuality, to make you blend into the sea of identical figures trudging through the yard. No names here, just numbers stitched clumsily onto cloth. A code that replaces your entire identity. You glance up at the buildings surrounding the yard. Long, low barracks like the one you slept in, their roofs sagging under the weight of frost, windows covered in grime. A few larger structures, brick with chimneys puffing smoke that you do not want to think about too hard. Somewhere a guard barks an order in German. The words may be foreign, but the meaning is clear enough. Line up faster, no hesitation. Dogs bark, straining at their leashes, teeth bared. The sound is sharp, jarring, and every prisoner flinches instinctively. Roll call begins. Hours of standing in the freezing yard, motionless while guards pace back and forth, counting, recounting, shouting at anyone who shifts or stumbles. The weak sometimes collapse, and when they do, it is not compassion that greets them. A kick, a shout, sometimes worse. You do not dare look too long. You just keep your eyes fixed straight ahead, your body trembling from the cold, your mind drifting somewhere else, anywhere else. Because thinking too hard about where you are will break you before the day even begins. When it is finally over, you are herded toward a long building that serves as the kitchen. Do not let the word fool you. There is no smell of frying bacon, no fresh bread, no coffee brewing. What waits for you is a thin gray liquid called soup if the guards are feeling generous, or just dirty water with floating cabbage scraps if they are not. Maybe a chunk of stale bread, so hard you could use it as a weapon if you had the strength. This is not breakfast. It is fuel, barely enough to keep your body from collapsing before the day's work. You sip it carefully, because spilling means losing what little you have. You chew the bread slowly, even though it tastes like mold and dust, because there is no guarantee you'll get anything better later. This is the rhythm of life in the camp. Wake up in filth, stand in the cold, choke down a few bites of something barely edible, and then head to work. But do not think of work as a paycheck or even as something meaningful. Work here means breaking rocks until your hands bleed, carrying heavy loads until your back gives out, digging trenches that serve no purpose except to exhaust you. The labor is not designed to build anything. It is designed to destroy you slowly, piece by piece, until there is nothing left. And just when you think you understand the misery of daily life here, the reality sinks in deeper. Because this camp isn't just about imprisonment and forced labor. It is also a laboratory, a testing ground, a place where the word experiment does not mean curiosity and discovery. It means you are about to be subjected to procedures that sound as though they were created by someone who despised the very idea of humanity itself. The barracks are not simply dormitories. They are storage units for fragile lives. The yard is not just a place for roll call. It is a sorting ground. And the infirmary, the building marked with the Red Cross, is not a hospital at all. It is where the most chilling nightmares patiently wait. As you shuffle back from the so-called kitchen, bowl still in hand, you notice the way some prisoners are pulled aside by guards. Not for punishment, not for more work, but for something infinitely worse. They are escorted toward the medical building, their faces pale, their bodies thin, their eyes restless with fear. No one says it out loud, but everyone knows what it means. Once you pass through those doors, you rarely return the same, if you return at all. The barracks become your only refuge, though calling it a refuge feels cruel. It is overcrowded. It reeks. It crawls with lice. It is colder inside than outside, but still it becomes the one place where you may collapse, close your eyes, and pretend for a short while that you are somewhere else. Perhaps you imagine your old bed, your family's kitchen, the familiar sound of laughter, or perhaps you choose not to imagine anything at all, because memories ache too much. Night comes quickly here, though you cannot tell if it is truly night, or only the thick clouds blotting out the sky. You do not control the hours. There is no clock, no rhythm of your own choosing, only the constant bark of orders. You collapse into your bunk, surrounded by coughing, muttering, restless bodies. The blanket is thin, the straw mattress pushes harshly into your back, and your stomach growls from emptiness. Sleep comes only because exhaustion drags you under its weight. And yet, even here in this world of cold, hunger, and fear, there are fragile glimpses of something unexpected. A whispered joke passed quietly between two bunkmates. A scrap of bread pressed into a shaking hand. A steady palm resting on your shoulder when your body trembles too much to still. The human spirit does not vanish completely, even in a place designed so carefully to crush it. But it flickers weakly, like the smallest candle struggling against the wind, always threatened by the next order, the next strike, the next experiment. So this becomes your new home. A barracks filled with rot and despair. A yard of endless roll calls. A kitchen that serves hunger instead of food. And a medical building that promises horrors disguised as treatments. You have only just woken up here, and already the truth is clear. This is not life. It is survival, one agonizing day at a time, in a place where science has been twisted into a weapon, and humanity is nothing more than another experiment waiting to be carried out. You have endured another roll call, another bowl of watery soup, another endless shift of labor that hollows your body and scrapes away your strength. But if you believed that swinging a pickaxe until your hands split open was the worst this place could offer, you have not yet met the true authorities here, because the men who hold the most power do not carry rifles. They carry stethoscopes, clipboards, and scalpels. At least that is what they seem to carry. In truth, they carry nothing but detachment wrapped in the appearance of white coats. These are the doctors in uniform, and they are about to redefine everything you thought you knew about medicine. When you imagine a doctor, perhaps you think of a family physician who listens carefully, checks your pulse, and reassures you softly that all will be well. Here, that image dies the moment you step into the infirmary. These men do not see you as a person. They observe you as though you are a broken tool, a machine part, but with even less care for whether you will continue to function afterward. Their coats are pressed, their boots polished, their hair perfectly smoothed, but beneath this appearance, they are not healers. They are administrators of suffering, overseers of pain. You are lined up with the others in a narrow corridor that smells faintly of antiseptic and strongly of iron. The white walls shine, but not with warmth or safety. They shine with the cold indifference of a place built to appear clinical while hiding the truth. It is nothing more than a disguised chamber of torment. A man in a lab coat strides past, boots clicking on the tile, cigarette smoke curling in his wake. He glances at you briefly, scribbles on his clipboard, and walks on without a word. To him, you are not a man, not a woman, not even a human being. You are subject 47 or 82 or 109. You are only another entry in his records. The names of these doctors are whispered among the prisoners at night. Mengele, Rasher, Schilling, Hurt. To the world outside these fences, some of them are respected scientists with university chairs, published research, and honored positions. Inside, they are predators wearing the mask of knowledge. Joseph Mengele, the so-called angel of death, whose calm smile hides a fixation with twins that borders on madness. Sigmund Rasher, who straps prisoners into freezing water and calls it aviation medicine. Karl Klauberg, who devotes his studies to sterilization carried out like an assembly line. These are not secret figures lurking in the shadows. They are men of rank, adorned with medals, funded and encouraged by the Nazi state itself, urged to stretch human cruelty in the name of progress. When they enter a room, even the guards stand taller. The SS officers may hold guns, but the doctors hold authority. A single nod from them can seal your fate. A guard may beat you. A doctor may decide to dissect you. The guard controls your body for a moment. The doctor controls what will be done to it entirely. and there is no appeal, no hope of mercy. The clipboard in his hand is more dangerous than the rifle slung at his side, because a bullet would at least be quick. A clipboard means you will be kept alive just long enough to endure whatever procedure is written down. You are led into the examination room, and the light blinds you after the dim haze of the barracks. A doctor in a spotless coat stands waiting, his hands clasped behind his back. He does not greet you. He does not acknowledge you. He simply gestures, a silent command. Strip. Your body shakes in the cold, but modesty does not exist here. You are not a person. You are material. You drop your clothes into a pile, and the doctor moves slowly around you, inspecting, measuring, observing as though you were livestock. He lifts a caliper, carefully notes the width of your skull, the span of your chest, the length of your arms. He murmurs something low to an assistant, who scribbles it quickly into a notebook. They are not diagnosing. They are cataloging, fitting you into twisted theories of race and biology. A cough escapes from your throat. The doctor's eyes flick toward you, and he writes something new. Without knowing it, you have just been marked for a respiratory study. Another figure enters the room, younger, eager, the type of student who elsewhere might be learning how to save lives. But here he learns how to dismantle them with precision. He presses a stethoscope to your chest, nods thoughtfully, and writes his note with satisfaction, as though he has uncovered some fascinating clue. But the puzzle is you, and the solution always ends in pain. At night, when sleep will not come, prisoners whisper their stories. One tells of being submerged in freezing water while doctors watched from behind glass, stopwatch in hand, waiting for his body to fail. Another whispers about injections, about diseases like typhus, malaria, and tuberculosis, deliberately placed into healthy veins so that decline could be charted and measured. Someone else swears they saw a pair of twins taken into a room smiling because Manglé always promised candy only for one to return days later, mutilated and silent. The doctors do not just treat the sick, they make the sick. They create illness where none existed, all to record the progress of decay. And the chilling part is how calm they are about it. No raised voices, no manic laughter, no obvious sadism, just cool professionalism. A doctor notes your pulse, your temperature, your breathing rate. He files the data, checks a box, and then decides whether to inject you with seawater, expose you to poison gas, or amputate a limb to test a new treatment. To him, it is not cruelty. It is procedure. The same way a modern researcher might adjust a microscope, he adjusts you. Occasionally, you hear their conversations. The words float above you like a foreign language, but the tone is unmistakable. They argue about methods, about results, about which approach will provide more accurate numbers. They do not argue about whether it is right. That question never enters the room. In their world, right and wrong do not exist anymore. There is only useful and useless, productive and disposable. And you know which category you are in. The walls hold their secrets, and you sit quietly among them, breathing shallow, your mind drifting between despair and disbelief. In another place, far beyond these fences, life continues with all its ordinary rhythms. Hospitals hum with activity, children are born, and medicines like penicillin are saving lives. But here, that same science is a knife twisted into the soul of humanity. What is supposed to heal has been repurposed to break. In this space, medicine is not a gift. It is a weapon. Each note on a clipboard is a verdict. Each experiment a reminder of how fragile the body truly is when it is reduced to numbers on a page. You sit on the examination table, the cold of the metal biting through your skin, while the doctor flips through his notes. He does not look at you. He does not need to. In his mind, you are already classified, your outcome already chosen. Maybe you will be part of a high-altitude test, strapped into a pressure chamber, while the air is slowly pulled away until you convulse. Maybe you will be selected for sterilization, your body targeted by chemicals or radiation. Or perhaps you will be chosen for disease trials, pathogens injected into your veins while they wait to watch your body falter. Whatever it is, it will not be treatment. It will be procedure, a cold ritual of observation that will leave you reduced to another line in his report. The clipboard closes with a snap, and with that sound, your path is sealed. A guard appears at the door. The doctor nods, and you are taken back into the corridor, back toward a life where time is not measured in months or years, but in brief stretches of borrowed survival. Behind you, the doctor lights a cigarette, his attention already turned to the next subject, the next chart, the next body. For him, the day continues without pause. For you, the nightmare has only deepened. And as you shuffle back toward the yard, the realization sinks in more heavily than the chill in the air. These men will one day claim they were only doing their jobs, that they were simply scientists seeking truth, that they were following orders. They will hide behind the white coat the way others hide behind a uniform. But you know the truth now. You have seen it with your own eyes. The white coat does not make them doctors. The uniform does not make them soldiers. They are something else entirely, something colder. People who traded humanity for procedure and called it science. Another involves forcing women prisoners, still alive, to lie against your frozen body in a grotesque parody of compassion. Their warmth is used as a tool, not a comfort. Sometimes they rub you with animal skins, pour boiling liquids over you, or leave you shivering until your own body gives up the fight. Each attempt is timed, measured, and carefully noted, not to save you, but to determine which method works best. The room fills with sounds, the click of stopwatches, the scratch of pens gliding across paper, the occasional command barked in German. Your own sounds, gasping, whimpering, do not register. They are not part of the data. You are not a person here. You are a reaction, a statistic. The doctor's eyes remain fixed upon you, not with compassion, but with a detached curiosity. It is the kind of gaze one might direct at an insect beneath a magnifying glass, cold and analytical. Time begins to lose its meaning. Each second stretches into something unbearable, drawn out like an endless thread. Your body remains caught between sharp agony and hollow numbness. The shaking slows, your thoughts blur and drift. And it is not that you cease to care. It is that caring itself becomes impossible when the mind is half frozen. Even fear lingers too sluggishly to reach you in time. Somewhere close, a doctor murmurs about survival time. His tone carries an almost clinical satisfaction, as though you have performed well in his twisted trial. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it ends, or rather you end. Perhaps your heart falters, perhaps your lungs seize, or perhaps your body simply chooses to surrender. If you are unlucky enough to remain alive, you are dragged from the tank, your limp frame discarded onto a cot, left to shiver and convulse while the doctors neatly pack away their notes. If death comes, it is acknowledged only as another number. They do not mourn, they do not pause, they do not hesitate. They simply mark the time of death, scratch a line into a ledger, and ready the tank for the next subject. There is always another subject, always another body waiting in the barracks, another number soon to be called. The experiment does not end with you. It continues without mercy. The men in their coats hunger for more data, more numbers, more proof that they have done their work. Later, they will stand in courtrooms, pointing at their charts, insisting that it was all for science, for the nation, for progress. But you know the truth. You felt it in every frozen nerve. This was never science. It was cruelty dressed in equations, sadism masked by symbols of learning. And as you lie drifting between consciousness and silence, you begin to see the most frightening truth of all. Out in the world, people still trust in doctors as healers. They still believe in the purity of the white coat, the comfort of the stethoscope, the reassurance of a calm voice. But here, in this room, those symbols are hollow. The coat is not clean. It is soaked with suffering. The clipboard does not record progress. It records death. And the stethoscope pressed against your chest was never listening for life. It was listening for the silence that comes at the end. So when you wake tomorrow, if you wake tomorrow, you will not only remember the cold, you will remember the faces watching you freeze, the pens scratching your death into history. The reality that your suffering was no more than another figure in a ledger of cruelty. You will remember that here, even the most primal human instinct, the need to find warmth, has been weaponized against you. And you will know the most dreadful part. This was only one experiment. There are many more waiting, each as grotesque as the last, each designed to press the human body past the fragile edge of endurance. And each carried out by men who never asked themselves whether they should. You made it through the freezing tanks. Or perhaps you did not. Perhaps you were dragged out half dead, a pen scratching terminated in neat handwriting across a page. But let us imagine you survived. Your body clung to life through hours of icy torment, through waters cold enough to still the strongest of hearts. Congratulations. You have earned yourself passage to the next trial in this carnival of nightmares. This one is not about water. It is about air. And the question the doctors wish to answer is as simple as it is cruel. How high can the human body ascend before it breaks? In another place, in another time, altitude tests would belong to brave pilots climbing into cockpits, engineers refining oxygen masks, scientists adjusting dials and gauges in pristine laboratories. But here, stripped of all ethics, stripped of humanity itself, science becomes something else. Here it is a steel chamber in a camp, and you are the subject. The guards march you down a corridor where your footsteps echo against the stone until you arrive at a room more like a factory floor than a clinic. At its center waits a towering cylinder of steel, thick-walled, heavy with rivets that gleam under the light. It could be mistaken for a boiler or the hull of a submarine if you did not know its purpose. This is the low-pressure chamber, your flight without wings. The doctors and their assistants stand nearby, white coats pressed, boots polished, clipboards balanced in their hands. You could believe you are about to watch a lecture at a university, were it not for the fact that the chalkboard is missing and the student is you. A guard heaves open the hatch, the screech of metal vibrating through the air. Inside, the chamber is barren. No cushions, no straps, no instruments for you to hold. Only a single chair bolted to the floor, and the knowledge that once the door closes, there is no escape. You do not step inside, you are shoved inside. The hatch slams shut, its clang reverberating deep into your chest. The air feels heavier already, as if the room itself is waiting. Valves hiss, machinery whines, and the hum of the system grows louder. Outside the glass ports, faces lean in, watching you as though you were no more than a specimen on display. They do not ask if you are ready. They do not ask anything at all. They simply begin. At first, the changes are subtle. Your ears pop. Your head feels light, as though you had driven suddenly up a steep mountain road. But the sensation builds, sharpens. The pressure falls further. The air thins. Your chest rises and falls more quickly, lungs straining for oxygen that is not there. You gulp at the emptiness, pulling breath after breath that feels as hollow as drinking through a straw in an almost empty glass. Panic stirs. Vision blurs. The world tilts and begins to spin. A piercing ring grows inside your ears, a sound that drowns out everything else. Your hands shake uncontrollably, fingers curling against your will. You attempt to move, but your body rebels, weakened, trembling like fragile paper. Beyond the glass, eyes study you without a flicker of feeling. Every twitch, every spasm, every desperate gasp is noted with precision. Stopwatches click, pens scratch. The chamber simulates altitudes of 40, 50, even 60,000 feet, higher than many aircraft could ever climb. At such heights, the human body is not a vessel of strength. It is a balloon, straining, failing, unraveling. Your blood oxygen plummets. Your brain begins to shut down. Some collapse into unconsciousness in minutes, slumping forward while the doctors watch. Others convulse, bodies jerking violently, foam bubbling at their lips as hypoxia consumes the nervous system. Through it all, the doctors do not flinch. They do not open the hatch. They do not save you. They lean closer instead, captivated, their faces glowing with the same fascination one might show a new machine sputtering to life. They want to see how long you last. They want to see precisely where the fragile line between life and death begins to fade. Every heartbeat, every breath, every second of agony is a data point in their notebook. Sometimes they revive subjects, dragging them out of the chamber once unconsciousness hits, forcing oxygen back into their lungs, rubbing stimulants on their skin just to see if revival is possible. Other times, they do not bother. They let the chamber run until the body inside stops moving, stops breathing, stops being anything more than a corpse. And then they open the hatch, pull you out, and carry you away like a broken mannequin. The chamber is cleaned, reset, prepared for the next flight. There are variations, and some are even more harrowing than others. Certain trials involve simulating rapid decompression, the kind of sudden disaster that happens when a plane tears open mid-air. One moment the pressure is steady, and then in an instant it plummets, and your body reacts as if it has been thrown out into space. Your chest feels like it is ripping open, the delicate tissues straining beyond reason. Your eyes bulge, your vision swimming with stars. Your skin tingles and crawls as nitrogen bubbles churn inside your blood, tearing at your veins from within. In another world, pilots might have been secured with ejection seats, oxygen masks strapped tight, and training drilled into them for moments like this. They would have safety gear, emergency procedures, and men ready to help the instant danger struck. But here, there is none of that. Here you are strapped to nothing, trained for nothing, equipped for nothing. You are left to flail helplessly while men in polished boots and pressed coats nod approvingly, their pens scratching in neat lines across their notebooks. The aftermath is never merciful. If you survive, you stumble out dizzy, your lungs seared raw, your head pounding as confusion coils through your brain. Guards shove you without sympathy back toward the barracks, where you collapse onto your bunk, trembling uncontrollably. Around you, other prisoners glance in silence, some with pity, some with empty resignation, because all of them know that tomorrow it could be their turn. Nobody dares speak, for the walls are not only thick, but also listening. Compassion itself can become a death sentence, and nobody here can afford to be noticed. If you do not survive, if your body succumbs to the chamber, your lips stained blue, your chest quiet and still, then you are no longer seen as a person at all. You become a specimen. Your body is dragged not to rest, but to a table, where it may be dissected and studied, your organs weighed, measured, recorded. The doctors lean over you as if this were a normal anatomy lesson, as if you had willingly offered yourself for study. But you never agreed. You were forced. You were taken. You were conscripted into one of the cruelest medical trials in history, where choice never existed. The horror is compounded by how easily they discuss it afterwards. They write papers. They present results. They share their findings as though this were ordinary research. They speak of thresholds of consciousness and the limits of hypoxia, while carefully omitting the truth that these numbers came at the cost of human lives. In their reports, there are no names, only data, only numbers written in ink, while the real people behind them are left in silence, erased by indifference. At night, back in the barracks, the stories circulate quietly, whispered from one trembling mouth to another. Someone recalls the sound of the hatch slamming shut, that awful echo that marked the beginning of their torment. Another remembers the sensation of air vanishing from the room, the unbearable pressure in their chest, the cruel way their veins seemed to strain and rupture. Some swear they saw capillaries burst beneath the skin, leaving bruises like maps of suffering. The whispers blur fact and rumor, but no exaggeration is needed. The reality is enough. The reality is more than enough. Through it all, the doctors remain the same. Calm, professional, detached. They finish their shifts and go home, perhaps to warm meals, perhaps to books, perhaps to children waiting to be kissed goodnight. Then they return the next morning, light their cigarettes, adjust their coats, and call for another prisoner to step forward. For them, it is nothing more than routine. For you, it is another death sentence dressed as science. You once thought that freezing water was the worst trial, that nothing could surpass the agony of the cold. But at least when submerged in ice, you felt something. In the chamber, it is different. In the chamber, everything fades. The strength in your limbs, the breath in your lungs, even the will to fight. It is not drowning. It is not burning. It is suffocating slowly in a hollow room filled with nothing, while strangers watch in silence and take careful notes. And perhaps the most chilling part is not the experiment itself, but the knowledge of what comes next. You know that when they are done with you, when your body has been wrung dry of usefulness, there will always be another waiting. There is always another body ready to be shoved into the chamber. Always another life reduced to a number on a page. So maybe you weren't chosen for the freezing tank. Maybe you avoided the low-pressure chamber this time. You might think that means you've been spared the worst. But in a place like this, there's no such thing as spared. There's only waiting for your number to be called. And today, your body isn't going to be tested with cold air or thin oxygen. Today, it's thirst. The Nazis had a problem. At least they called it a problem. Their pilots flying long missions over the Mediterranean risked being shot down or stranded at sea. Fresh water in those cases wasn't exactly on tap. So the question they wanted answered was, could men survive drinking seawater? And if so, for how long? Now in a sane world, someone would test this in a lab using chemical analysis. Calculate salt concentrations, compare with kidney function, maybe test small, safe doses on willing volunteers. But this isn't a sane world. This is a concentration camp, which means the study was carried out not with volunteers, but with prisoners. And the test wasn't safe. It was a slow-motion torture session, dressed up as science. You're marched into a room with long benches and metal cups lined up neatly on a table. At first glance, yeah, it looks almost civilized, like maybe you're about to be given a proper drink for once. But the smell hits you before the truth does. A faint, briny tang of salt water, sharp and unpleasant. The kind of smell that clings to your clothes after a swim at the beach. Only this isn't a beach, this is a laboratory. And the salt water in those cups isn't diluted. It's straight from the sea, boiled and strained, maybe altered with a chemical to make it even less drinkable. The guards line you up. The doctor gives an order. You're handed a cup and told to drink. You hesitate. Every instinct in your body screams that this is wrong. You've been thirsty before, painfully so. But even then, you knew salt water wouldn't help. It would make it worse. Still, refusing isn't an option here. A rifle butt to the ribs, a barked command, and you tip the cup to your lips. The taste is immediate and brutal. It's not just salty. It's overwhelming, like swallowing liquid sandpaper. Your tongue recoils. Your throat burns. Your stomach lurches in protest. You gag, sputter, but the guard's glare tells you to keep going. You choke it down, every swallow scraping like broken glass. The others beside you do the same. Their faces twisted, some coughing, some retching, but nobody dares spit it out. The room echoes with the sound of forced gulps of misery disguised as a medical trial. The first cup is bad. The second is worse. The third feels impossible. Your stomach cramps, twisting violently as the salt tears through your gut. Your lips dry instantly, cracking, peeling, as if the salt is sucking the last bit of moisture from your body. Your throat feels raw, parched, even though you're swallowing liquid. It's the cruel paradox. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. The doctors stand nearby, watching carefully. They note your pulse, your skin color, your breathing. They write down how much you drank, how quickly you began to cramp, how long before you started hallucinating, because hallucinations come quickly when your cells are literally drying out from the inside. You see flickers of light at the edge of your vision. Hear sounds that aren't there. The man next to you starts muttering nonsense under his breath, eyes glazed, drool running from his mouth. A doctor steps forward, tilts his head, scribbles something down. Hours pass. Your body rebels in every way it can. Vomiting, diarrhea, spasms of pain that leave you curled up on the bench. Your kidneys scream in silence, overworked, failing under the load of salt they can't process. Every cell in your body is desperate for water, clawing for hydration, but all you're given is more ciater. Some prisoners beg for mercy for just a sip of clean water. The guards laugh. One even raises a ladle of fresh water, lets it glisten in the light, then dumps it onto the floor where it soaks into the dirt. The cruelty is not just in the deprivation. It is in the taunting, the reminder that relief is right there, always withheld. The thirst becomes something beyond physical. It is mental, crushing, all-consuming. Your lips split and bleed. Your tongue feels swollen, heavy, coated in salt. Every thought narrows down to one obsession. Water. Clean, cool water. The kind you used to take for granted. Turning a tap, filling a glass, not even thinking about it. Here, it is the most precious thing in the world. And it is the one thing you are denied. The experiment continues for days, dragging on in a haze of misery. Some subjects are given only seawater, their bodies writhing under the endless intake of salt. Others are starved completely, denied both food and drink, just to see which would break faster. A few are handed cups of chemical mixtures. The nuts is experimented with a compound called Burka water, supposedly designed to desalinate seawater. But it did not purify. It poisoned. It made the water even more toxic, causing violent diarrhea and rapid collapse. The doctors knew it was ineffective, but that was never the point. The goal was never health, only suffering. By the second or third day, you can barely stand. Your body is skeletal, your skin cracked and flaking, your eyes sunken deep into shadow. The cramps come without mercy, twisting you into a knot of agony. You try to close your eyes, try to drift into unconsciousness, but thirst wakes you again and again, dragging you back into the awareness of your torment. Some prisoners begin licking the walls in desperation, searching for even a hint of condensation. Others chew on wood splinters, hoping for the faintest trace of moisture. You catch yourself fantasizing about ordinary things. A dripping faucet, a puddle after rain, even filthy ditch water you once swore you would never touch. Anything but this desert of salt. And all the while the doctors watch. Their faces are calm, their hands steady, their notes precise. They lean close with stethoscopes, counting heartbeats. They take blood, check your pulse, record your skin tone. They argue quietly about which method produces cleaner data. They do not see a human being wasting away in front of them. They see graphs. They see tables. They see progress, where you see only the withering of life. Eventually, your body reaches the breaking point. Some collapse into seizures, limbs jerking and twitching uncontrollably as the brain's signals collapse. Others drift into delirium, whispering nonsense, clawing at the air, their eyes lost in visions that do not exist. A few simply go still, their breathing silent, their bodies no longer willing to fight. When that happens, the doctors mark the time, close a folder, and step calmly away. The corpse is carried off. The benches are wiped down. The room waits for the next group. And for those who stagger back from the room, the word survival feels empty. You are not whole. You are not healed. You are simply left alive, stripped of strength, trembling and broken. You collapse onto your bunk, your lips split and bleeding, your throat raw, your stomach knotted. Every nerve inside you begs for water, a mercy that never comes. Perhaps another prisoner slips you a crust of bread soaked in rainwater, perhaps not. Either way, you know that tomorrow someone else's number will be called, and the cycle will begin again. The irony, the deepest cruelty, is that none of this produced anything useful. Modern science already knew that seawater could not sustain life. Sailors centuries before had learned that truth by bitter experience long before anyone thought to test it in a laboratory. The results here were not revelations. They were inevitable. The only thing these doctors proved was the measure of human suffering, how long a body can burn with thirst before it collapses into silence. For the doctors, that was enough. So now when you sit in your barracks, your lips still cracked, your body still trembling from dehydration, you understand the cruel truth. Here even the simplest human need, the need to drink, to quench thirst, has been twisted into a weapon. Water, the thing that should give life, has been turned into torture. And tomorrow, when the guards march another group into that room with the benches and the metal cups, you know exactly what they will face. The taste of salt, the agony of thirst, and the knowledge that in this place, even a sip of water can kill you. So you have survived freezing tanks, thin air, and salt water that burned your insides raw. You have staggered back to the barracks again and again, thinner, weaker, but somehow still breathing. And just when you think maybe you have paid your dues to the nightmare, another order comes. A guard points, your number is shouted, and you know instantly that your body has been chosen for the next experiment. This one is not about water or air or thirst. It is about chemical weapons. Welcome to mustard gas trials, where science means blistered skin and lungs that feel like they are on fire. They lean in close to measure the blisters, note the spread, record the time. They do not offer pain relief. They do not even offer water. They just observe. Some of them prod the blisters with instruments, watching you flinch, recording your reaction. One presses firmly just to see how much fluid spills out. He looks almost curious, like a schoolboy poking a frog in a biology class. Only you are not a frog. You are a human being who has just become an unwilling test tube. And mustard gas is not just skin deep. The fumes creep into your lungs, clawing at your throat, making every breath feel like inhaling hot sand. You cough violently, your chest seizing, your eyes watering. Tears stream down your face, blinding you, not from sadness, but because your tear ducts have been chemically attacked. Your voice rasps, your throat raw, every word reduced to a croak. The doctors nod approvingly, noting the irritation, recording the timeline of your decline. Days pass like this. The blisters do not heal. They spread, merge, ooze, sticking to your clothes until every movement rips the skin anew. Infection sets in quickly. The raw wounds seep pus. The smell of rot clings to you. Your body weakens. Fever takes hold. Chills shake you. Even sweat drenches your thin uniform. Sleep becomes impossible. Every turn of your body scraping against the raw wounds. You beg silently for relief, for a bandage, for anything, but none comes. The point is not to help you. The point is to watch you unravel. Sometimes they try treatments. They smear ointments, sprinkle powders, inject experimental drugs. None of it helps. Most of it makes things worse. The ointments sting like acid. The powders dry your wounds until the cracks split wider. The injections leave you trembling, nauseous, vomiting onto the floor while the doctors jot notes about side effects. You are not being healed. You are being used to test whether the next German soldier who stumbles into a mustard gas cloud might stand a chance at survival. Spoiler, he would not. Other times, they expose you to the gas itself, not just swabs on the skin. They herd you into a sealed room, the door clanging shut behind you, and release the vapor. It is invisible, but you feel it instantly. Your eyes slam shut, burning, tears pouring down your face. Your lungs seize. Every breath is a ragged gasp, as if you are drowning on dry land. You claw at your throat instinctively, desperate for air, but the air itself is poison. You stumble, collapse, retch onto the floor, every muscle screaming. Outside the little glass window, the doctors watch intently, pens poised, noting the exact moment you collapse, the exact time it takes for you to lose consciousness. Sometimes they revive you, dragging you out, forcing air back into your lungs. Not because they want to save you, but because they want to see what happens next. Do the lungs recover? Do the blisters scar? Can the subject walk again? Other times they let you fall silent, mark the time of death, and move on. One less subject, one more data point. The whispers in the barracks are always the same afterward. Someone describes how their skin peeled off in sheets, how the blisters fused until they could not move their arm. Someone else coughs blood into a rag, their lungs shredded from the gas, barely able to speak. Another prisoner pulls back their sleeve to reveal scars like melted wax, the permanent marks of chemical burns. These stories circulate, half warning, half inevitability. Everyone knows that one day it might be their turn, and through it all, the doctors remain calm, professional, detached. They argue over methods, debate which ointment seems to delay infection, which injection prolongs survival. They do not question whether the experiments are necessary. They do not even question whether they are moral. In their minds, the suffering in front of them is not cruelty. It is a controlled variable. They are not hurting people. They are gathering data. When you finally stumble back to the barracks, your body covered in blisters, your lungs shredded, your skin reeking of infection, you collapse onto your bunk with no strength left. The others glance at you and look away quickly. Not because they do not care, but because staring too long at your burns is like staring into their own future. Everyone here is a mirror of what is coming for the rest. And the irony, as always, is that none of this was necessary. By the time these experiments were carried out, the world already knew what mustard gas did. Soldiers from the First World War had suffered its effects by the tens of thousands. Medical journals had already documented the blisters, the lung damage, the blindness. The Nazis were not learning anything new. They were just repeating old horrors, this time on prisoners who could not fight back. So tonight, as you lie in that bunk, your skin raw, your chest heaving, you know exactly what science has become here. It is not healing. It is not progress. It is a factory of scars, a production line of suffering. And when the guards come tomorrow, when another number is called, someone else will take your place in the chamber. Someone else will feel their skin turn to fire. Someone else will learn the hard way that in this camp, even the air you breathe can be turned against you. You have been burned, frozen, suffocated, and starved. You have been used as a sponge for chemicals and a container for seawater. At this point, you might think the Nazis had run out of ways to use the human body for their twisted idea of science. But you would be wrong, because in their obsession with building a perfect race, they are not just focused on how to kill. They are focused on how to control life itself. And that is how you end up in the sterilization wing, where the experiment is not about survival, but about making sure you can never reproduce. The Nazis have an entire program devoted to what they call racial hygiene. The idea is simple in theory, monstrous in practice. Eliminate undesirable groups by stopping them from having children. Jews, Romani, People with disabilities, political prisoners, they are all targeted. It is not enough to imprison you. It is not enough to work you to death. They want to erase your future, to make sure your bloodline ends with you. And they have doctors more than willing to test methods on living subjects. You are marched into a different kind of room this time. Not the cold tank, not the pressure chamber, not the chemical lab. This one looks almost ordinary at first glance. White walls, medical equipment, neatly arranged, a faint smell of disinfectant. But the calm is a disguise. On the tray, you see instruments that do not belong in a hospital, at least not in the way you know hospitals. Long needles, harsh chemicals, radiation devices that hum faintly. These are not tools for healing. They are tools for ending something fundamental inside you. If you are a man, the process might start with injections. A doctor fills a syringe with a milky chemical, then calmly inserts it into your groin, straight into the tissue of your testicles. The pain is immediate and searing, a sharp shock that spreads through your lower body like fire. You gasp, maybe cry out, but the doctor does not flinch. He makes a note on his clipboard, watches you squirm, then steps back to observe. Over the next days, your body swells, bruises, fever sets in. Infection crawls through you. Sometimes the chemicals destroy tissue entirely. Sometimes they do not. Either way, you have been marked as biologically useless, even if you are still alive. If you are a woman, it is another kind of horror. Some are forced into surgery, their fallopian tubes tied, clamped, or burned. Others are injected with caustic chemicals designed to scar the uterus, leaving them in agony for days, bleeding, writhing in pain. Still others are placed under X-ray machines, their lower bodies exposed to high doses of radiation. You lie there as the machine buzzes, your skin heating, your organs silently cooking inside. The doctors do not warn you about the burns, the cancer, the sickness that follows. They do not need to. They want it. You feel the effects quickly. The burning, the cramps, the waves of nausea leave you weak and trembling. Some women lose consciousness on the table, only to be dragged back to the barracks afterward, bleeding through thin clothes, barely able to walk. Others develop infections that rage unchecked, fevers spiking, bodies consumed by pain. And the doctors, they take notes. They argue over dosages. They debate which method is most efficient. Efficiency is the word they use often. Not compassion, not treatment, not even medicine. Efficiency. As if sterilizing a human being were the same as streamlining a factory process. In the barracks, the stories spread in whispers. A man unable to walk for weeks after injections, his groin blackened and swollen. A woman who stopped menstruating suddenly, her body scarred inside from chemicals she could not even name. Another developed sores and burns that never heal, the result of radiation aimed at her pelvis. Everyone knows someone who went into the sterilization wing and came back changed, hollow, broken. And everyone knows that if your number is called for that building, it is not just your present at risk, it is your future. The cruelty of it is not just physical, it is psychological. In a world already stripped of dignity, the ability to imagine a life beyond the fences is one of the last fragile comforts. Maybe you think if you survive, you will see your family again. Maybe you will rebuild. Maybe you will have children. But sterilization rips even that hope away. It tells you that even if you survive this camp, even if you live to see freedom, your body has been altered permanently. The future you dreamed of is gone. The doctors do not care. To them, reproduction is not personal. It is numbers, charts, theories of genetics scribbled in thick German handwriting. They talk about bloodlines, about purity, about strengthening the nation. They look at your pain and see progress toward a racial utopia that exists only in their ideology. The fact that you are screaming on a table, clutching your stomach, begging for relief, it does not register. You are not a person. You are a case study. Sometimes they combine sterilization with other experiments just to see what happens. Women who have already been weakened by starvation are injected with caustic substances to test resilience. Men who have been through freezing or pressure chambers are irradiated afterward. As if one nightmare were not enough, the layering of cruelty is not accidental. It is deliberate. The doctors want to see how broken a body can become before it finally stops. And the worst part is that it is not always immediate. Some subjects walk out of the experiment room on their own 2 feet, seemingly intact. They return to work, to their bunks, to the endless grind of camp life. They think maybe they survived. But months later, the truth reveals itself. A woman tries to conceive after liberation, only to discover she cannot. A man finds himself permanently infertile, his body scarred in ways he never understood at the time. The sterilization experiments are not just torture in the moment. They are a delayed cruelty, a wound that follows survivors for the rest of their lives. Back in the barracks, you lie awake, the pain in your abdomen radiating through your body, your future slipping away with every cramp, every fevered shiver. Others whisper about what was done to them. Voices hushed, ashamed, terrified. There is no comfort, no solidarity strong enough to undo the damage. Because here, even the most basic part of being human, the ability to create life, has been weaponized against you. And tomorrow, the guards will line up another group, and the doctors will pull out their syringes, their scalpels, their radiation machines. They will talk about efficiency. They will scribble notes about dosages. They will debate methods in calm, professional tones. Another set of prisoners will leave the building unable to imagine a future that includes children, family, continuation. Because in this camp, even your ability to reproduce is not yours. It belongs to the men in uniforms, the ones who have decided they can play God with your body, with your life, with the generations that will never come after you. You have already learned that here survival is nothing more than a delay. One day it is the cold tank, another day it is a pressure chamber, another a syringe of poison or radiation. But then you notice something strange happening in the camp. Certain prisoners are separated, pulled aside during selections, not sent to labor or immediate death. They are not treated better exactly, but they are marked for something different. And the reason is not strength or skill or luck. It is that they came here in pairs. Identical faces, matching heights, siblings who look like mirror images twins. If you happen to be one of them, congratulations or condolences, depending on how you see it. You have just become the personal project of Wisif Mengele, the man who strolls around Elvitz with a polished smile, pristine boots, and the calm demeanor of someone who believes he is a benevolent uncle. The prisoners whisper his name at night, the angel of death. And while most doctors look at you like a number, Mengele looks at you like a toy something to play with, to prod, to break apart, to compare, and to discard when the novelty wears off. From the moment he spots you in line, his eyes light up. He points, gestures, and suddenly you and your twin are ushered out of the crowd. The guards do not shove you roughly the way they do others. They do not need to. Mengele's selection carries a different kind of authority. You are marched away from the rest, your hand clutching your siblings because, in this place, that bond is the only anchor you have left. And now it is the very thing that has put you in danger. At first, it feels like you have been given a strange sort of reprieve. You are not sent to backbreaking labor in the fields. You are not dumped into the freezing tanks. Instead, you are housed in special barracks, cleaner than most, though still crawling with lice and reeking of damp wood. You are given slightly more food, enough to keep you alive, not enough to keep you healthy. Mengele visits often, walking between the bunks, smiling, speaking in a friendly tone. He pats children on the head, asks questions, even brings them sweets sometimes. For a moment, you almost forget where you are. For a moment, you think maybe this man sees you as human. But then the experiments begin. You and your twin are led into the examination room. Mengele himself stands waiting, flanked by assistants with notebooks. He is perfectly groomed, his uniform spotless, his hair neat, as if presentation matters more than the reality of what he is about to do. He greets you warmly as though you are a guest in his office, and he tells you to undress. You obey, shivering, while he circles, eyes sharp, noting every similarity and difference between you and your sibling. Measurements come first: height, weight, arm span, head circumference, calipers pressed to your skull, tape stretched across your shoulders. Every angle of your body is compared to your twins, noted meticulously in a notebook. Then come the photographs. You stand side by side while a camera clicks, flashes blinding you. The doctor arranging you like dolls. Smile. Do not smile. Turn your head. Hold still. The photographs will be filed away in albums, grotesque trophies of his obsession. But measurements and photos are only the beginning. Soon, the real experiments start. Injections of unknown substances into one twin while the other is kept as a control. Maybe it is a disease culture: typhus, tuberculosis, malaria. Maybe it is a chemical that burns under the skin. Maybe it is nothing at all, just saline to compare reactions. You watch your sibling's face twist in pain, their body convulse with fever, while your own remains untouched for now, but you know it is only temporary. Mengele doesn't leave anything incomplete. Blood draws are constant. Vials upon vials are taken from your veins until you feel laden, weak, barely able to stand. Sometimes one twin is drained nearly dry, while the other is left alone, just to see how their bodies react differently. Organs are prodded, fluid sampled, skin scraped. You are not being treated, you are being cataloged. Then come the surgeries. No anesthesia, no real sterilization, just scalpels slicing into flesh while assistants take notes. Bones are broken deliberately to compare healing. Muscles are cut and sewn back together. Sometimes limbs are amputated, one twin losing a leg or an arm while the other remains whole, so Mengele can observe the contrast. The pain is unimaginable, but to him, it's just an experiment. Sometimes he goes further. Injections into the eyes to see if he can change the color, leaving children blinded or scarred. Attempts to fuse twins together, stitching their bodies like grotesque puppets, creating infections that rage unchecked. Autopsies are performed not after death, but to create it. One twin is killed, so organs can be examined and compared with the survivor. The surviving twin rarely lasts long afterward. Once one is gone, the other has lost their value. And through it all, Mengele maintains the same demeanor, calm, polite, even cheerful. He whistles as he works, cracks small jokes, chats with assistants as though nothing unusual is happening. He believes what he is doing is science, that his twin studies will unlock genetic secrets to help the right breed a perfect race. He does not see screaming children. He sees research subjects. He does not see families torn apart. He sees data points. And the most terrifying part is how normal he makes it seem. In the barracks, the twins talk among themselves, comparing stories in hushed voices. One describes injections that left them feverish for days. Another shows scars from surgery that still ooze pus. Some cry quietly in the dark, clutching their siblings, knowing that as long as they are together, they are still useful. The moment one dies, the other's days are numbered. It's a bond twisted into a curse. Occasionally, you hear footsteps in the night. Guards enter, call out a pair of names, and two children are led away. They do not come back. Rumors spread. Autopsies, skeletons, specimens preserved in jars. Nobody knows for sure, but everyone understands the truth. He asks questions, compliments hair color, offers candy. Some children smile back too young or too desperate to see through the facade. Others turn their faces away, knowing kindness here is just bait on a trap. You lie awake at night, your twin beside you, the fear gnawing at your stomach. You wonder when your turn will come. Will it be injections tomorrow? Surgery? A sudden selection in the night? You don't dare ask. You don't dare plan. You just cling to your sibling's hand and pray that somehow both of you will wake up again tomorrow. Because here, in Mangalay's world, twins are not miracles of biology. They are experiments waiting to happen. Toys for a man who thinks God handed him the keys to creation, when in reality, he is nothing more than a butcher with a stethoscope. You've made it this far somehow. Frozen, blistered, starved, stitched, burned, maybe even cut open. And yet, you are still alive. But in a place like this, being alive only means you are eligible for the next test. And this time, survival isn't about cold or salt or radiation. This time, survival means letting your body become a battlefield for the deadliest diseases known to man. Welcome to the world of infectious disease experiments. Typhus, malaria, plague, where the syringe isn't filled with medicine, but with something designed to break you from the inside out. Their armies spread across Europe were constantly battling disease. Soldiers on the front lines weren't just dying from bullets and bombs, but from fevers, parasites, bacteria. Typhus swept through trenches. Malaria stalked warm regions. Plague lingered like a ghost of medieval times. They wanted vaccines, cures, ways to protect their troops. And rather than risk German volunteers, they looked to the prisoners in striped uniforms. If you want to test a vaccine, you first need someone sick. So their logic was simple. Why wait for a natural outbreak when you can inject people directly? You are marched into a room that feels more like a laboratory than a torture chamber at first. Bright light stainless steel trays, glass vials filled with clear and cloudy liquids. The smell of alcohol swabs and disinfectant hitting your nose. A cruel disguise that makes it seem like you were about to be treated rather than destroyed. You sit on a wooden bench alongside others, your sleeve rolled up whether you want it to be or not. A doctor approaches with a syringe, needle gleaming. The prick is small, barely noticeable, just a sting. But inside that syringe is something that will take over your entire body in hours. Maybe it's typhus, a bacterial infection that thrives in filth and lice. Maybe it's malaria, carried by mosquitoes now delivered straight into your bloodstream. Maybe it's plague, the same disease that once wiped out half of Europe. You don't know which it is. The doctor doesn't tell you. He doesn't need to. At first, you feel nothing. You're marched back to the barracks, told to rest, though rest is impossible with the dread gnawing at you. Then the fever starts. It creeps slowly, a warmth spreading under your skin, until suddenly your body is an inferno. Your heart pounds like it is trying to escape your chest. If it's typhus, the fever is relentless. Waves of heat leave you delirious, shaking with chills 1 minute and burning the next. Your skin erupts in a rash, angry red blotches crawling across your arms and torso. Your head pounds with a pressure so intense it feels like your skull might split. You babble nonsense, not even sure where you are anymore. And the doctors, they lean in close, listen to your ramblings, take notes on how long it takes before your mind fractures under the fever. If it's malaria, the fever comes in cycles. Hours of chills so violent your teeth chatter, followed by sweats that soak the straw beneath you. Then, just when you think it's easing, the fever crashes back with double the force. You vomit until your stomach is empty, then retch until there is nothing left. Your body convulses with shivers, every muscle trembling under the weight of infection. Your nerves are next. Sharp instruments probe beneath your skin, poking, scraping, severing. Pain lances through every extremity, electric and unrelenting. You flinch, scream, collapse against the straw. But the doctors watch impassively, making notations in their notebooks, arguing about angles, depths, reaction times. Every twitch, every tear, every whimper is recorded as data. Sometimes they take things further. Ligaments are cut, tendons severed, joints twisted and reset incorrectly. Fingers splay unnaturally, wrists collapse under strain, knees buckle, hips lock. They test endurance, mobility, the breaking points of human tissue under stress. When a subject cannot rise from the bench, when the limbs convulse in pain or spasm uncontrollably, they mark it down as a threshold crossed, a point of knowledge gained. You are no longer a person. You are a series of failures to be studied. Infections spread as expected. The smells of rot, pus, and fever mix into a thick, suffocating haze that clings to the barracks. Doctors approach again and again, swabbing wounds, collecting samples, not to heal, but to measure deterioration. Skin sloughs off, darkened by gangrene, and they note the rate at which tissue dies. You vomit from pain and fever. Sweat drenches the straw, your limbs convulsing with tremors that no human should survive unbroken. And still, Mengele smiles. He hovers over the instruments, the broken bodies, the moans, as if he were overseeing a perfectly organized laboratory experiment. Each injury, each infection, each shiver of agony confirms his theories. He talks casually, almost cheerfully, commenting on how resilient some subjects are, how quickly others fail. To him, there is no cruelty, only progress. You try to hide, to curl in on yourself, but your body betrays you. Limbs no longer obey. Muscles twist with spasms. Bones that should heal instead grow crooked, fused improperly by deliberate malice. You reach for your twin, but they are undergoing the same torture, mirrored agony across the room. The bond between you is no comfort, it is another layer of terror, each knowing the other's suffering as their own, helpless to intervene. And then comes the silence. Not peace, but exhaustion, collapse, the body refusing to obey. The doctors lean close, whisper to one another, compare charts. You are no longer a child, a sibling, a person. They are observing a specimen at its breaking point. And when they finally leave, the room is still, except for the groans, the rattling breaths, the tremors of bodies ravaged by fever, infection, and broken bones. Here, the body is no longer a vessel. It is a machine to be calibrated, tested, and destroyed. Every organ, every fiber, every nerve is mapped, prodded, measured. Every ounce of suffering is a lesson. And you, trapped in the straw-strewn barracks, soaked in sweat and pus, shaking from fever and broken bones, are the subject of the most meticulous cruelty imaginable.